Aschenbrenner, the wunderkind from Silicon Valley, born in Germany, went to the Green Party when he was a teenager and advocated for a more just world, then decided that he has a great opportunity in Silicon Valley, wrote some nice little memos, and then got lucky to jump on the wunderkind train of Silicon Valley, which is a very magical train. You never know who gets on there. You need to hit a certain behavioral pattern that matches the ideas of Silicon Valley tycoons, what it means to be a wunderkind, and then suddenly you get a lot of money. So Leopold was lucky enough to get a lot of money from Silicon Valley investors. He's only 23 as of today, and invested that in some no-brainers like Anthropic. And that was back in 2023. So he got a little lucky, got into a great startup and made a lot of money, because if you invest in Anthropic, naturally you get lucky. And that is exactly what saves him right now, because after he did that, he got even more money and decided to venture out, no pun intended, into the dangerous world of hedge funds. And he went beyond private investments into liquid investments. And that is a very different game, in case you're familiar with venture capital and with hedge funds. Because in venture capital, the world is simple. If you're well connected and you have a bunch of money and you're sitting in Silicon Valley and you're investing in a bunch of startups, you always get rich, unless you're really bad at your job. It's a much lower pressure, a much less dangerous area, because you have a gated community. You are an insider. You just drop the money. And a lot of Silicon Valley investors famously say you don't even need to know anything. You just spread your bets. And the more you spread it, look at Y Combinator, look at SV Angel, the more money you make, because you're just hitting the home runs. So that is the world that gave Leo a lot of money. But then he decided, I'm very smart. I can invest in public stocks. But that is a very different world. It is a much bigger market. It is a much more dynamic market. It's a market full of little sharks. And we will get to one of these sharks in a second. And he started gambling a little bit. He started using a lot of leverage in his fund. And you guessed it, it blew up on Wednesday last week, because he made a bunch of wrong bets. He bet on software and he bet against the chips, or he bet for, he caught the market exactly at the wrong inflection point, and he used 4x leverage, which fundamentally led to a margin call on his public equities, and he couldn't fulfill the margin call, and that is how he got actually killed. And here is his savior, Ken Griffin of Citadel. Not a beginner, not a wunderkind, but a very, very savvy hedge fund investor. The head of Citadel, one of the great investment firms, one of the most savvy investment firms. And very likely, he was a shark circling this whole poor Aschenbrenner situation and prepared the takeover, probably helped a little bit liquidating the fund in the first place with his comments about the Fed, which were totally wrong and totally not dumb. They were probably very on purpose by Ken, because Ken is a smart cookie. And he said, the Fed is going to hike rates, which of course the Fed didn't do on Wednesday, but everyone now got nervous. And all of that led to the debacle where Ken had to jump in and actually purchased the assets of Leopold's fund, which is ironically or unironically called situational awareness, the lack of which led to its implosion. And Leopold Aschenbrenner's Situational Awareness Fund peaked near $45 billion, can you imagine this, in early July on leveraged semiconductor and AI infrastructure positions. But then he shorted a bunch of stuff. He went double long. He was on margin. Margin calls then for significant sales at discounts, reducing assets under management to approximately $10 billion, which sounds still a lot, but it's not a lot if you start with 45 billion. And it's probably a little less than 10 billion where it was liquidated. And in case you didn't know that, if you get margin called and you have to sell your positions and you have significant positions in only mid-sized stocks, right? Some of them. He was in a lot of hyperscalers and neo clouds, and the neo clouds and the smaller companies probably broke his back. I covered this here. You saw he was in Nebius 30%. That's a lot of exposure. SanDisk 19%, lots of exposure. And you know what happened to SanDisk over the last few weeks? He was in Micron. I got a little screw in Micron, but I was a little more cautious than him. On Bloom Energy, CoreWeave, TSM, and so on. And you can imagine what happens with this stuff if you are 4x leveraged. And if you have that, then someone has to bail you out, because you cannot just sell your stocks on the stock exchange. That would blow up and implode the prices even further. So you need a block buyer, someone who steps in and outside the stock exchange just takes over all your stocks in a block transaction. And that person needs to be able to act very quickly on a very large amount of money, probably 5 billion or whatever was left in his public fund. And that person was exactly this man here, Ken Griffin. And that is the big story of the week. Why is it such a big story? Because this story actually resembled something that is much more important than just a little fund blow up. It was an iconic situation because it actually changes the way the market behaved. Okay, it changed the way the semiconductor and the AI stocks traded. It even affected Tesla and other stocks. So the massive implosions that we saw in the market in July, the worst month in the history for the last 30 years at least, the worst drawdown in momentum stocks, worse than 2008 crisis, worse than the dot-com crisis. It was the worst month in 30 years in terms of drawdown of momentum stocks. And that means something. And at the center of this entire thing stood Aschenbrenner's fund and this whole takeover. And what that actually means for stocks is a very good question that we will cover today. And we will do so in a new format. By the way, we will have coverage of the individual stocks and everything that happened in the weekly brief. And we will go right into it and see how this affected the market and our favorite stocks. We also had earnings of Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft, of course, and that influenced everything too, because it happened right at the moment where Leopold blew up. Wednesday night, Leopold was finished. Then Microsoft and Meta reported earnings, and I will go into that in the weekly brief. And then Amazon on Thursday, and I said right when it all happened at the Fed talk on Wednesday, in the last hours of Leopold's fund, what that all means. And before we jump into the weekly brief, last comment, there is a lot of talk about Leopold still being up 80%, 60% year to date on his fund. We have to understand that if you are in Anthropic, if you have a private investment in Anthropic, that thing is up 159% year to date, maybe even 300%. It depends when the last round exactly happened, if it was in December or January, December 2025 or January when it was exactly closed. But Anthropic is up 159% minimum. So if you have 5 billion in Anthropic and you are up 60% year to date, and your Anthropic $5 billion stake is up 159%, that tells you a little bit what happened on the public equity side. Very likely, if that is actually what everyone means with the 80% or 60% up, it means there are massive losses. He's deeply in the red with the public fund. But now let's get into the weekly brief and look at some more details here. So first of all, fear and greed index. We always look at this starting today, every single week in the weekly brief. Fear and greed index is now actually up. I mean, up towards greed, 5 points this week. Very, very interestingly, because on Wednesday, I can guarantee you it was below the 39 we had last week. So the fear and greed index is done by CNN. It's a reflection of all kinds of dimensions that reflect the confidence and the fear and the greed of the market, including options pricing, all kinds of stuff. So we're actually up because the last 2 days, right after he blew up, were very positive. My macro risk situation is still high, mostly because of Japan. We just heard today that Iran is actually tacoed, as I constantly press everyone and get a lot of flack on it saying Iran cannot be escalated. Trump is with the back to the wall. He has no chance of doing that. Iran has the upper hand, whatever you think of it, if that's good or bad or neutral. I'm a little less passionate about these things. I try to look at it from a factual perspective. Iran has control of the region at this point. The US is running out of ammunition, more importantly, out of time, because oil prices will go absolutely berserk if this is not resolved very soon. We don't have much more time left. If this goes into September, it's going to be a disaster because of strategic reserves and all kinds of other things. So, which reduces the risk, by the way, because the US has no choice. This thing cannot escalate. I reduced my confidence from 90% to 70% that it cannot escalate because I'm not sure that Trump is in total control of what he's doing. That's why I decrease it. But I maintain high confidence that this thing cannot escalate. But on the macro level risk, we have some warning signals about how stocks traded. It was extremely wild the last month. And we have the Japanese yen problem that blew up again on Friday when Besant actually intervened and started stabilizing yen dollar ratios, which is a little scary because that normally doesn't happen. So Japan is in trouble. The good news is this is very anticipated by everyone who knows anything. So it's not a real surprise, but it's such a big systemic trade. Japanese money going into US stocks and now flowing out of US stocks because they're going back into Japanese bonds because now the interest rates are shooting up like crazy. So that's a little scary. It's very hard to predict how much of an effect that has. We also see, of course, US bonds going through the roof, 5.3+% now for the 30-year bond, all because, well, we don't know everything it causes it, but Iran is a little reason for that. So the macro situation is not great right now, but probably can be resolved. So definitely headwinds. AI sector, we will go into that when we talk about Asia and AWS and Microsoft earnings. Let's start with our favorite stock. Just very quickly, I posted something on YouTube and also on X that I'm getting more constructive here on Tesla because Tesla got absolutely creamed. You know that I got out before, or I heavily reduced before earnings. I did not like the whole setup. I did a very good move there. Not so good moves on Micron, by the way, right after, so I didn't save that much money. But at least I avoided the Tesla downfall. You have probably seen where this stock is going. And when we look at the chart over the last month, of course, that was a very bad month, right? We are down 20%, not good. Here was the earnings, or the day after earnings. Here's I got out here. I got already a little hurt before, but I did not want, I anticipated bad earnings reaction. I didn't anticipate that bad, but this was also very much in line with the market. Don't overinterpret it on Tesla. I do think there is a cleansing event that just happened with Leopold's fund blowing up. I think that was a very important part of this, even though most people would disagree with me, but they are wrong. Tesla definitely got a little bit into lockstep with the market. Look at Google, same day when Tesla crashed. And look at the other stocks. So that is a very interesting thing. And I see the behavior of the stock over the last week, for me, is a little bit constructive. Traded down to 298 midweek when everyone was destroyed, right after the Fed, before recovering to close Friday at 311, which is pretty good. It's up actually 1.4% for the week. And I believe, or what I observe, is the stock continues to show relative resilience near 300. So that is being established. More important than the 300 level is, in my opinion, the whole macro market situation, okay? So if the market now recovers or stabilizes here, which I do think should happen, unless Japan completely blows up. If Iran stabilizes, keeps stabilizing, we might see a rally on Monday. Who knows? Oil is still going down. I think Tesla has a good chance going back to 360. I am not super confident yet that this happens right now in the next couple of weeks, but I think we're getting into a situation where this would be a more constructive short-term view on Tesla. Next, NVIDIA. Early in the week, very bad. So with this whole disaster that actually happened, right, with the semiconductors and everything, NVIDIA got also hit like all the others, still down, but recovered very nicely once the Aschenbrenner situation was resolved on Wednesday. So I think NVIDIA is heavily undervalued here. When you look at the fundamentals, it's the best semiconductor stock, the most robust, lowest risk, in my opinion. Went to a low of 190. I went into some short puts at 197.5. That paid off nicely. And I do think NVIDIA will also recover with the market, even if the market is a little sluggish. As long as it doesn't go down, I think NVIDIA has a good chance going back to 210. So Micron, unbelievable action we saw with Micron. That was pretty horrible if you were in Micron. Got absolutely ridiculously destroyed, hit levels that I did not expect, to be totally honest. 711, let that sink in, 711. And then shot up ridiculously over 900 on Wednesday and then Thursday. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. But you saw others like Nebius going up 30% in one day just because of Leopold Aschenbrenner. They got destroyed on Wednesday and then on Thursday shot up like crazy. I think this chart is actually wrong. Let's prefer this. I prefer this one. We are still working on details on the system. Should be debugged over next week. Let's go instead to Google Finance and look at this a little more accurate. Here you see the actual chart. So absolute insane recovery here from, it was down 711, or like the official market close was 737. Let that sink in. Still down 2%, by the way, for the week. And then you saw this insane thing, which is a clear indication this was absolutely Leopold Aschenbrenner's fund that got absolutely shorted into oblivion because there were some real sharks on him to destroy him, and they succeeded. They destroyed him, shorting the hell out of this. It was all completely concerted when you look at this movement. And at the millisecond Ken Griffin took over, boom, Ken Griffin made his 20% in a few hours. Not bad on 5 billion or 10 billion, whatever it was. And then it peaked here, last short covering, and then dropped down again pretty violently, but I mean, not compared to where it was. So Micron remains an extremely dangerous stock with extreme strategic and maybe even short-term upside. I'm very constructive on that ticker because of the fundamentals. There was just more news about how people actually view or what JP Morgan just said about the earnings outlook. And it's just what I say all the time. You don't need to be a genius to figure that out. But let me show you this, what actually happened here. Big memory TAM and big memory margins. This is Bloomberg Finance LP, JP Morgan estimates. I mean, look at this. Okay. They will have 75% margins. I mean, this is the entire sector, but this sector is not very large. It's SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron is number 2. So they will have 75% margin. Everyone agrees on that. They will have 900 billion TAM, right? Memory operating margins. But look at this. Next year, it's going to be even higher. They're going to go to 77% because the demand is just insane. And we already know that, while the market is even further expanding pretty dramatically. Now comes the most important thing. Because Wall Street right now assumes there is a massive drop-off. That's the only explanation why Micron trades at a ridiculous 8 forward earnings multiple. But that assumes that we see a massive drop-off of margins and TAM starting in 2028. But that's absolutely not the case. We see that the market keeps exploding upwards while the margins are actually stable. And I can guarantee you one more thing. When you look at 2029, maybe we get to 2029 to 2030, you will not see an implosion. Will margins go down a little bit? Of course, maybe they go down 10%. Will the market expand 20%? Of course it will. If margins go down 10% and market goes up, let's say they go down 20% and market goes up, expands 20%, that's net zero. That's the same earnings. No one right now of any of these people who are pricing Micron right now would ever expect that Micron keeps making the same amount of money of 2028 earnings or even 2027 earnings in 2029, 2030. If Micron even keeps, if they even keep their earnings for next year stable, the absolute earnings for next year into 2028, 29, and 2030, it's already absolute game over. It's already trading below the earnings it would get into the company by 2030. It would basically be trading, on a level of 5 PE right now, which is crazy. So this entire thesis that Micron can't keep earning money is just nuts, given this whole thing. And the question is it cyclical or not cyclical? Dan Niles, smart guy, he had commentary on this and said it's cyclical. People are beginners who don't understand this is cyclical. Dude, what do you mean by cyclical? What does it mean? What does it mean? If you mean cyclical is that this growth will end in 2028, I wouldn't even push back too hard. I don't think it ends. I think it continues on a slower level. But cyclicality would mean this would implode back to zero or whatever, to 2025 levels. It's not going to do that. And even if it's just stabilized, if growth goes to zero in 2028, Micron is still undervalued by a lot. So, you have to be very specific on these things. And 7 forward price earnings is just a little too crazy in this whole build out. So I remain very, very positive on Micron, but you have to be cautious and we never know how deep this thing can fall in the meantime. SpaceX, our favorite stock, earnings on August 4th, which is on Tuesday. This will be a real thriller that what is happening. And of course, not of course, I will actually have a video coming out tomorrow where I will outline the exact scenarios of what we think here with doing a lot of detailed analysis that I will present to you. What happens on Colossus? What happens on Colossus on the build out of terrestrial compute for SpaceX this year and next year, what the exact scenarios are and the scientific evidence, the factual evidence, why I believe this is going to happen. And I will debunk this crazy 4 gigawatt this year projections and all these very exuberant predictions on how much compute they will launch. But I will also outline what the realistic expectation is for SpaceX and what the earnings impact on the stock will be, which will be extremely significant still. And then we will try to make sense of it for the stock. And I will do this before they report earnings because I'm not afraid and we are doing our job here. I have a great analyst on this. And I will present the findings to you before the earnings call, and then we will see what SpaceX says if they provide any guidance for Colossus, which is by far the most important thing for SpaceX right now. By far. I know there are lots of fanboys and fangirls out there, and I'm not criticizing anyone. Rockets are very exciting. AI satellites are exciting. It's just too far in the future. Because Starlink doesn't matter. It's too obvious what it does. It's all priced in. We know what Starlink does. It grows great. It's all fine, but the numbers are very clear. Starship doesn't matter because Starship will not be commercially fully ready in 2027. So yeah, it will do something in 2028, maybe end of 2027. It will fly to orbit. It will bring down the cost, but it will not drive earnings. Very simple. Not in 2027. And Wall Street is a little short-sighted, so it won't move the needle. AI satellites definitely will not move the needle next year, but they will be very important and have very important breakthroughs. But what will move the earnings needle in very dramatic ways is Colossus. So that is the one thing to watch, and I think we have the best analysis. I will present this tomorrow, and we will see if you were right. Because I'm not doing this for clicks. I'm not doing it for YouTube. And the only reason I'm doing it is I want to be right because we have investments going on here, and we need to be right. And I use you guys and the whole feedback system more for holding us accountable when we make predictions. It just helps me to be more clear-sighted with the predictions. I made some very good predictions. I predicted Trump is going to win with 312 electoral votes. Go back, and I made a big fat video, and guess what happened? So I like these little predictions. Iran was more tricky, but I always said they can't escalate, so that so far I was right. Microsoft, let's go into earnings. Microsoft reported Wednesday afternoon after Leopold got murdered on Wall Street. Murder on Wall Street. And Microsoft absolutely killed it. Unbelievable what happened to Microsoft. Went up from 390 to 450. Crazy. Week 15% up. Asia and other cloud services grew 43%, and Asia annual revenue surpassed 100 billion for the first time. Microsoft cloud revenue reached 39 billion, 27% growth. Commercial remaining performance obligations stood at 678 billion. That is called backlog. Unbelievable. For everyone who says AI is a bubble, this is not a bubble if you have $678 billion backlog, more than Google, but Asia is also bigger. So that is absolutely crazy, and it confirms that AI is more than alive. It's the biggest boom ever. It is not a bubble. It is driven by extreme commercial interest. AWS basically reported the same thing. I mean, the numbers are different, but the same gist of it. You know, Chris Camillo made another trade of his life. I think it was a little risky when I listened to him, what he exactly did. Dude, you can do all the research in the world, Chris. And he's brilliant at doing his research. He did a great job calling Amazon, but predicting reaction to earnings, especially with CapEx expanding like this, what they reported is a little tricky, because it's not about, are you right? Is your research right? No, now you have to predict how markets react to an earnings call. So I think there was a little bit of high risk involved here on his call options trade. But the bottom line is AWS revenue at 42.2 billion grew 37% year over year. It's fastest in 18 quarters. That is 4.5 years. Let that sink in. So last time in COVID, when everyone had to go online, AWS annualized run rate reached $169 billion. Let that sink in. Total Amazon revenue was $200 billion, 20% plus. But think about it, 169 billion out of 200 billion is AWS. AWS is like such an insane business. The stock surged more than 10% in extended trading following the release. Microsoft, by the way, did not increase CapEx expectations too much. They did very good CapEx planning, so there was no shock. Amazon increased it by 10% and the market didn't care, which was very interesting, because when Meta did the same thing, they totally got punished. But Meta has not locked in any kind of business model that is directly a function of the CapEx like AWS did. And so they got absolutely murdered, this poor little stock, 8% down, even though I am strategically bullish on Meta and the AI strategy because I like the Wang dude. I think he's a very smart cookie, and you have to bet on smart cookies. Jason Wang is very smart, the head of AI, Meta AI. One of the greatest flips from having the worst dude, Jan LeCun, who just didn't understand anything about AI as a business and as an R&D operation, to one of the smartest guys, the founder of Scale, Jason Wang. Stock fell approximately 8%. EPS came in at 6.18 per share. But against a 2.4 billion legal charge and severance costs. So does that even matter? I think it was completely overdone. That was mostly because of CapEx. They increased guidance a little bit. So I think the market is still extremely unforgiving. The market still wants to see massive, massive earnings against the CapEx. If you delivered like Amazon, they're happy. If you delivered like Microsoft, they're happy. If you delivered as much as Amazon does, the market even accepts and supports CapEx growth. But Meta didn't do that and got punished, I think, unjustifiably. But, I remain constructive on Meta. When it comes to Microsoft and Amazon, I think they're great run companies. But would I buy the stock here? I don't know. I think Tesla is a better buy. I think Micron is a better buy. I think Amazon and Microsoft now went up like crazy. They're on a great trajectory. They have low PEs, so they're definitely good stocks. I just think there's some better stocks out there. What is the weekly bottom line here for the Capital Weekly Brief? The week was a warning signal. The AI trade is alive and well, but it has entered in July an extremely volatile phase that puts highly leveraged AI bets, or even leveraged AI bets, like Leopold's at risk of implosion, while blue chips like Tesla and Nvidia hold key levels, which is good. And Tesla and Nvidia are more interesting to look at than these killer stocks like Microsoft and Amazon. Of course, they go up if they produce super killer quarters, but Tesla can always drop more when the market doesn't want it. And Nvidia at the eye of the storm, the AI bet is also more under pressure if people hate AI. The fact that both hold key levels and Aschenbrenner is taken out finally could signal a little bit of a bottom. But what we also learned this week is short term, you have to be cautious. This market is under a lot of attention by sharks, right? They can drop anything to any point if they want. With the Koreans leveraged like crazy, even though the leverage has wound down now, we need to maintain caution here, especially with margin. And so I'm very constructive. I'm very optimistic and bullish on the AI trade. I think now is a good buying opportunity. You just have to be aware. We have Japan. We have US 30-year bond risk. We have a lot of uncomfortable risks in the market. And so that makes everyone a little nervous. At the same time, fear and greed is still at fear, which is a bullish signal. So I would say good time to buy, good time to be bullish. However, there was a warning signal. This market can drop any moment a lot. And you need to make sure you survive these drops. Because if you do, you're going to make a lot of money. So that's the bottom line. I hope you enjoyed that. And we will have a weekly briefing every week now. By the way, we have a Capital weekly briefing. Then we have an AI Frontier weekly briefing where we cover the AI Frontier, everything that's going on there from Grok to Kimi to DeepSeek, and of course, Anthropic, OpenAI, and this whole thing to understand where AI stands. So this is not so much capital markets. This is more what is going on with the technology with this transformative AI revolution. And then we have a third brief that I call Pioneerlands and Politics, or Politics and Pioneerlands. This week we will report on the Spanish invasion, the Moroccan invasion of Spain, the absolute panic in the EU leadership, and a bunch of very interesting things that are happening in politics. The Schengen agreements are being dissolved all across the EU now because of the Spain thing, and we see a rapid rise of the alternative parties all over the place in Europe, France, UK, and especially Germany. So these three briefs now come to you every week. Capital brief in Pioneerlands, what we just did, the AI frontier to understand where is AI, and of course, number 3, politics. So I hope you will enjoy that. So let's go to the comments here. Where are my comments? Okay, let's do this. I have this new problem here that I always first have to open YouTube before I see the comments. I have to complain to Riverside about this. But it will all be fine. Here the comments. Let's go back here. Now I see you guys. Time to kick out Spain and dissolve Schengen. We don't need it. Andreas Peterson. Yes, dissolve Schengen. This is going to be fun. I hope to see you guys also on the political weekly briefing. By the way, The weekly briefing is normally only for members. We just did this today as experimental's kickoff point because we are revamping Pioneer. So if you're not citizens, you just got free, amazing content. We will normally cut out the first piece. You will see it all. It needs some implementation time over the next week, maybe 2 weeks, but we'll make sure all of you, even the non-citizens, will be informed sufficiently. Of course, citizens are more informed. Space is going to 90 or maybe even to 80, maybe. Let's start at the beginning. Sorry, I'm jumping. I'm jumping too much to the ending here. Let's go all the way up. You, my man, Tagazaga. This sounds so Japanese. I love the Japanese, but I think you're not Japanese. Bullish as Fook. I don't know how to say that without being offensive. Double O. Hello, yo. Hello. Good morning from Mesa, Arizona. 116 degrees. Ooh, ouch. I wish Elon been this hot in the last earnings call. It's very funny. Skyline from Mesa in Arizona is making funny jokes. That is a funny joke. What are your thoughts on 6 August for SpaceX? Well, I will have out my take on SpaceX and the whole terrestrial compute build out tomorrow before the earnings call on August 4th. And then August 6th will be very important. That is the unlock moment where a lot of stocks come online. We have to watch this because this will be our first. Everyone is speculating too much, including me. What happens when we have unlock of the shares? Now we will see what happens. And that gives us a very important data point how bad these unlocks are or how not bad. So not just on that one day, but I think over the next week from 6th to 13th August, we will watch the stock and see what happens. Bullish as Folk says, I blew up a 6-figure trading account early in my trading journey. Leopold makes me feel better. Yeah, well, yours is 6 figures. His is, can't even do the math, 9, 10, 10 figures. It's pretty bad. It's totally normal. I blew up a 7-figure account early in my career. That was pretty bad. And I earned it all myself. That was very tough. But you live and learn, and that's why you don't give $20 billion to people who are in the live and learn phase. Skyline, I think he says fucking kid blew up AI for nowadays. I actually think it's over. I think the Leopold effect is over. You could see it in the market. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean the market is safe, but I think that was a pretty bad episode and it was his fault. But what he did was amazing, says Skyline. He must have thought he was God up until the devil took all his money. I can guarantee you he thought he's at least God. But now, not anymore. Kid worked at FTX. I know, like, look into his background. He worked at FTX. Are you kidding me? Then he worked in OpenAI. But more importantly, there's now a video circling around on X when he was 15 or 14. He was a Green Party member in Germany. That's the biggest red flag you can imagine. That's not good. Only 3 things will a smart man from his money. Liquor, ladies, leverage. Yes, I don't know who said that, but yeah, exactly. And liquor and ladies, they can take some of your money. I think ladies are probably, well, depends. Liquor, it depends. I don't make any judgment if ladies are worse or liquor. Maybe you get more for your money with the ladies than for the liquor. Not that I promote any of these things, but leverage is the worst. I have much more experience with leverage than with the other two when it comes to taking my money. And I tell you, leverage, that is a very bad one. Ladies in liquid always equal leverage. I bet someone purposely went after this guy. 1,000,000% T-Bone Harley. And we know that. Look at the stock movements. 100% he got cornered by short selling. Because once you know that, you know he has to sell and you know it drops the stock. So it was a safe bet. That was definitely a coordinated operation. I can guarantee you that. And Ken was part of it, but it was also his friends. But I mean, don't be mad at these guys. You can't just have a hedge fund with leverage and be like a little dummy and walk into that. I mean, that's the business of everyone. Just look at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, aka the Ken Griffin MSI. I mean, this guy, you know that Ken Griffin just bought a dinosaur, and the dinosaur is called Apex. Like, let that sink in. 100%. How do you get in and out of stock but not get killed by taxes? Well, that's a complicated question. Use your self-directed Roth IRA, for example. Andreas Peterson, I managed to get here finally, and congratulations. Taxes aren't that big for a thing unless you have some kind of massive portfolios. Most people overset taxes. For the average person, gains are just taxed at your normal income rate. Well, if you hold it a little longer, it's less than that. Did you know that you get up to $60,000 in capital gains, in long-term capital gains? Was it long-term? Let me think. Yeah, because short-term is income taxed. I don't even have to look this up. But most people don't know that. Most people don't know that. I will surprise you guys with tax knowledge now. That can be very good. Long-term capital gains. Did you know that long-term capital gains qualify for a 0% tax bracket? You are not paying a dime on long-term capital gains under $49,450 a year. Did you know that? If you don't make any money. So if you don't have a job and you only make long-term capital gains, your first $50,000, I think actually more now, are tax-free, which means if you make, let's say, 80,000 in long-term capital gains, only 30,000 of that are taxed at 20%. Like, let that sink in, or let's make it easy math. If you make $100,000 in long-term capital gains in the blessed United States, you're paying 20% on 50,000, which is 10,000 bucks. So your effective tax rate is 10%. You make 100,000 and you take 90,000 home. If you don't work, have no other income, and only make long-term capital gains. Did you know that? Just saying. There are many tax surprises. Once you become an investor and really focus on investing, many tax surprises. Another huge surprise for people who don't know that. I don't want to promote it. I don't want everyone to move to Sweden. But Sweden is one of the biggest tax havens in the world. Sweden. They have an account if you have 10 million euros and you make 10 million euros on top of it. You make 100%, you make 10 million, even short-term capital gains. You know how much taxes you pay? You pay 100,000 bucks taxes. You make 10 million, you pay 100,000. It's called the ESK, Investering Spar Konto. So like a lot of countries have surprising stuff going on. It's pretty crazy, but you have to think about it. And you cannot escape if you're a normal worker. If you get W-2s, you're screwed. Just saying. Long term, it has to be good for idiots and idiot ideas to get shaken out of the market. True. That is not just long term. Have you watched Meet Kevin's last video? He called it the evil plan worsens. He claims that Elon has an evil plan. Tesla will go to. I think Meet Kevin is a total clickbaiter, and he's always wrong. He's extremely wrong, and I think he's a little irresponsible because he's not a dummy. Hi Joe says big fan. Hi, I'm a big fan of Big Fan. I don't know what Elon's plans are with SpaceX and Tesla, but as a holder of both, it all makes me feel uneasy. I understand. I had a good discussion on the Cyber Bulls. Let's see what happens. Thanks for the explanation. What happened to this German Green Party genius Leopold Aschenbrenner? Other people's money. Yeah. Oh. Klaus Zinser. That sounds a little German. I mean, look, go on X if you're German and listen to this clip. It's like so disturbing. When he's like this little brat talking for the Green Party. I hate these people. I can't even, like, this is the most irresponsible, unaccountable, complete flip-flopping people. And of course, Silicon Valley is like, oh, this guy must be great. He's a complete spineless Green Party member. Jeff Jones Jr. Hey, Joe, thoughts on that weekly Tesla candle? I think there is a certain bottom coming in here if the market doesn't crash. I think Tesla is actually now in a good position to do reasonably well. Tesla's either going to 400 or down to 200, maybe even sits at 3 and goes sideways. Well, I would say, you have to be more specific. I would say if the market goes sideways or recovers, my best bet is Tesla goes back to 360 relatively quickly, but then has problems because it's actually what happened is not too bullish, but we can go back to 360 in my opinion. Tesla people need to look at it in comparison with the rest of the market. Everyone went down. Mass companies are more sensitive. Other big tech got hit hard as well. Exactly. Even Google. I think until we get clarity what's going on, the merger behind the scenes, it's going to be a rough patch. While SpaceX, we will know much, much, much more at the end of next week, of this week. Earnings and August 6th unlock will tell us a lot. I think I will be much more able to make predictions on SpaceX Friday this week. So tune in then. Andreas Peterson, I'm just worried Americans will elect the wrong president in the next election and will get Democrats. Well, you have the midterms coming up. Actually, the interesting thing is Trump completely destroyed because of Iran. Republicans look very destroyed in the polls. But you know who also looks very destroyed? Democrats. I think this will be very interesting. The Democrats are so in shambles because of their disastrous performance since Biden that even with a disastrous Trump performance now, people just don't know what to do anymore. So yeah, Republicans are super weak, but Democrats are also super weak. So it's actually, it's a little early to really focus on the midterms, but soon we will cover the midterms in much more detail because it is important. And I like US elections. There's lots of data points to be good at predicting them, at least the presidential elections. And so let's see. Space going to 90. That could absolutely be. I think we will see some serious movements this week. And it will tell us a lot in what direction the trend goes. Because let's see what they say about terrestrial build out. I think they will surprise. So here's the thing, I said it before. On SpaceX, we will have surprise earnings coming up. They will make so much more money than people realize. But they also have the share unlocks. So the question is, how does that play out? I don't know, bullish. There will be lots of sales of SpaceX shares because these lockups are for employees. And every wealth advisor in the world is going to tell them, sell. It doesn't matter how bullish you are. Sell some of, you have to diversify. You have to put yourself into the shoes of the people who have these shares. A lot of them are employees. They have to sell. It would be complete madness not to sell because they have like 99% of their net worth just in SpaceX and now they can sell. They will sell guaranteed 10 to 20% because they have to, even if they're super bullish. 35 will never happen. True, I think so. Nice weekly graphs, Joe. Thank you. Well, we need to fix these. We are working on some updates on the stock charts. It will be much better. Bullish says, I dislike Meta. What a crap company getting rich off selling AI slop to grandmas. Well, there is a difference between ethical issues with Facebook and the business case. Meta trades at a shockingly low. By the way, I have a story. I'm not going to tell you the story. It's going to be in the weekly. It's going to be an extra video covering some left-wing politicians in Europe. You will not believe what these people do. It's unbelievable. Talking about grandmas and screwing them over. Unbelievable. It will be shocking for Americans to hear that the Europeans might be even worse, the politicians, than American. Hotels of Space is already a good buy if you're just holding it for 5 years. I think, yeah, 5 years is a pretty safe bet. I think even 3 years, it's pretty guaranteed that this thing is much higher. Not an endorsement here, no recommendations. The only Kimi I acknowledge is Kimi Antonelli. Who's Kimi Antonelli? have to Google this. By the way, Kimi Antonelli. Oh, the racing driver. Very good. Time to kick out Spain and dissolve Schengen. Yeah, we had this already. What a disaster. Space going to 90. Chris says, hi, Chris. All I see on X is Korea and more cyber caps in the wild. Isn't Tesla on its way to massive gains in 6 months or less? I got a little more cautious. I think it's more 9 months or less. Now I basically allowed myself a little bit of a buffer, but if you ask me, I mean, right now everyone's very scared, to be honest, not on Tesla, but on macro. But I think our fear is a little irrational right now. Am I scared that we see a major market sell-off? Yes. Am I irrational about it like everyone else? Probably yes, because there's not much unknown. Even Japan, which is the scariest thing systemically, is just too well known. The US Treasury is very scary, the bonds, but why? Why exactly are they so high? But bond markets are also very smart. So there is some scariness in here. But let's assume with the midterms coming up, the US really being forced into a corner with Iran, and they will just make peace at this point. It's just now it's getting really out of hand. And I think the bonds are indicating that. So I'm still optimistic about this. And let's assume we don't have a market crash. Okay? If these are the assumptions, what are the odds that Tesla is at all-time highs or higher end of the year? I would say extremely high. Extremely high that Tesla is at all-time highs or higher end of the year. If the market doesn't implode, I have two questions. How do you get in and out of stocks and not get killed in taxes? And second, isn't the Roadster supposed to be revealed this month next? I don't know what happened to the Roadster. My flying car, I made a big, like, I don't know, I failed on this. Taxes are very difficult. Of course, I'm not allowed to give anyone tax advice. I'm in a special situation. I have still a Roth IRA. I also have a corporate account, and now we have an institutional account in Luxembourg for the Pioneer bonds and transition. That's why July for me was not really a trading month. It was just tiny little amounts in my private account because we're transitioning the capital into the institutional vehicle, the Pioneer bonds, hopefully very, very, very soon, starting hopefully this week, latest next week. So this was also a little bit of a administrative nightmare to get an institutional bond vehicle up, but it will pay off for all of you and me and everyone for Pioneer Lands. And so that will be effectively tax-free. I mean, not for the investors, but for the corporation. Here, you always keep saying that Trump is going to end the war for many months, but you don't realize is that the Iranians in power, or at least some of them in power, don't want to end the war. Well, they want to end the war, but on their terms. Of course, they want to end the war, but they don't want to give anything up, and I think they will get most of what they want, and then the war's over. And I mean, there are huge consequences for this. What is the fee to join? Do I need to be an accredited investor for the Pioneer bonds? Yeah, you need to be accredited, unfortunately. But it's not hard to be accredited, by the way. You can go to pioneeralpha.org for more information. You need to make over 200,000 a year or something, and over $1 million in assets, not including your primary residence. Leopold has time on his side, the other guy doesn't. Sure. I mean, I'm sure. Well, that's complicated considerations, yes. Scale on robotaxi is nowhere near big enough to cover infrastructure need to support it, charging, blah, blah, blah. Well, this can be solved very quickly once they can scale. It's all about, are they able to scale? Joe loved the alpha sprockets. Alpha sprockets? What are alpha sprockets? What are sprockets? Sprockets. Where are alpha sprockets? Smart people don't drink, actually. It's a life hack. I mean, was drinking because I'm German. I had to drink when I was younger, especially in high school and then later. But yeah, I don't drink alcohol at all. I drink like a glass of wine every 2 weeks or something. And I don't even feel good after. Sheep got skewered, wolf ate dumb retail. Oh yeah, there are some interesting charts. I will do an extra video on how retail actually got out of all these stocks in July and how institutional took over. So that's sad news. If you have 1 million capital gains, that exemption doesn't do much good. I mean, yeah, taxes is a whole complicated story. I can only say, like, focus your aggressive moves actually into your Roth accounts and have self-directed Roth IRAs. So you can actually trade options and whatever you want in stocks. And actually leverage is not allowed. You can use it if you have a checkbook account, but it's technically not allowed. And then they might take away your Roth. So you have to be cautious and understand the rules. But having to live in Sweden is a mighty high price to pay. Why? What do you have against Sweden? Sweden is very beautiful, but has political issues. Here, Kalimati, Joe, I've been working in Germany, made over $150K in stock market and I can't want to move back to Czech Republic. There are 0% tax if you hold 3+ years. Why don't you, if you make 150,000 in stock market, I think you're much better off in the Czech Republic. You should figure that out. Be free in your mind. I don't know your situation, but especially in Europe, there's a lot of luxury in picking your countries wisely. Meet Kevin is a troll and you have to sift through the garbage to find the good info, but I've learned a lot from that guy over the years. I think Meet Kevin is smart. He's definitely a smart guy, but he's also a little ruthless. How he talks a lot of crap. Looking forward to the SpaceX merger with Tesla, going to use leverage on Tesla this week. I would be cautious. Do you think EA is kind of just a will to power manifestation of left liberalism? Me think so, big baller. Effective altruism, or is it effective accelerated? Like there are all these stupid names. Effective altruism is like the worst thing ever. And of course, Leopold is also one of these guys. For me, this is a hyper red flag. This is a whole video we have to do on this. Effective altruism. Kind of a will to power manifestation or left liberalism. There is no such thing. Left liberalism is a myth, in my opinion. I think it's made up. No one is a left liberal. This is made up. EA, I can tell you the psycho profile of EA. It's like, it is for people who think they're so awesome, that they're so powerful because of their superior minds, that they can achieve anything they want, but they want to do it virtue signaling in service of others. But what's very important is that these others are little peasants who have no say in what they're doing because they're way too dumb. So effective altruism is like, I need all the money in the world, but I'm not doing it for myself because that's what little peasants do. I do it for all of you, but I want to make sure you guys have no say in anything what I do because you're too dumb. You're basically a little zoo for me, and I'm investing in the zoo. That is what effective altruism is, like the psychology behind it. It's like a blend of delusion, self-delusion of grandeur with extremely bad attitudes towards other people, because basically they view other people as little animals they can feed. It's very bad. I don't like effective altruism. It's always the same type of people. Yeah, it's like the Green Party. Weekend Wall Street is green by almost 1%. I know, of course, because of Iran. Democrats going full communism is going to be their headwinds. I don't know. We will see about that. I think, do they have any smart leaders? Of course, they're all evil, but Mamdani, is he smart? I don't know. I actually find him so repulsive. I can't watch him, but I have to look deeper into Mamdani, how smart he is. I think AOC is getting a little fat, but AOC, she's a little less dumb that she comes across, but that still might mean she's dumb. So, yeah, I don't see any real dangerous person there, but in principle, democratic socialism is definitely, I would be bullish on democratic socialism as a theme for 2028 because it's just the natural trap. If AI, accelerates the way I think, everyone becomes unemployed, people are already super frustrated. Populist socialism is clearly a winning recipe in times like that, especially in the United States where you have an education problem, so people don't know anything. So if you have all these people under whatever, under 50, yeah, they will be very open to socialism, to democratic socialism, to national socialism, to all kinds of socialisms. Uh, if you're frustrated, you don't have a perspective, and someone tells you, look, just take the money, we are going to organize it. I would be very cautious. I don't think any of the Democrats right now has like what it takes to make it happen. But I would be cautious. This is a risky situation we're going into in 2028. I think now it's still too early. I expect SpaceX investors selling the first lockup period ending and buying Tesla. No, but Ready Trader One, you have to understand. Alexander Mertz also got this a little wrong. Like, you have to think about who are these people who have SpaceX shares. If they are just employees, they are now rich. They're normally not rich people. What do? You go to a wealth advisor. All the wealth advisors like sell half of them and put it into a diversified portfolio. You have to think about the actual thing that's happening. I'm going to be annoyed if SpaceX runs this week off Elon Gwyn pump. Still won't make this bet due to SpaceX valuation, but see it happening. I think Jay Warren has a very good point. I'm not making a bet on SpaceX, but if I had to make a bet, I think it's a pump. Yes. But August 6th will be tough. Most likely, SpaceX gets pumped to a 130 or whatever and then drops back. Because I think Elon will be more motivated, much more than with Tesla. And Gwyn is probably a master of her craft. So, and they have potentially huge news on Colossus, which Wall Street likes. So, yeah, could be a total pump. But at the same time, in this market, could also not work. Jeff Jr., do you think Elon's mood on the SpaceX earnings call will be inverse to the Tesla one? Yes, I would bet on this. Which doesn't look good, by the way, for Elon. But yes, I would absolutely bet on Elon being in a very good mood. Like button, Keith Fuller, 100%. Thank you, Joe. I live in Sweden. Ramir. Ramir, probably. I live in Sweden, and because of you, I'm buying stocks in ESK now. Wow, that's smart. He is a smart man. The ESK is a gift from heaven, from the Vikings. This thing is crazy. The Norwegians can do it too. It's called ASK, but the ESK is a little better for some reason, for many reasons. What do you think about the current price level for Tesla call? For a Tesla call? Which Tesla call? Zebras? What's zebras? Gwyneth will be prepared for a first earnings call. Elon will pump. SpaceX can run, but who knows what the casino will do. Yeah, I mean, the odds that SpaceX runs on earnings is much higher than not. But am I going to play it? Do we know what the casino wants right now? I mean, it's like a bet. I don't, this is too speculative for me, but yeah. Do you need a couple of bucks for a new keyboard? Why? Is my keyboard bad? Does it sound bad? My keyboard is fine. Maybe it sounds bad. So do you still think Cybercap will generate enough revenue to move the needle for Tesla in the next 9 months? I don't see the path that quickly. If we get to thousands and thousands of Cybercaps, yes. If not, no. That's the big risk. It's not the revenue. It's will they get to thousands of unsupervised and then to tens of thousands in the next 9 months. Tesla all-time is crazy. Zero realistic catalyst by then. They'll be kicking the cyber cap can down the road for a couple more years. FSC has barely improved since robotaxi unveiled. I would push back on this. Not for years. Andreas Peterson, yes, we have political issues. It's called so. Andreas, are you in Sweden or in the United States? You have serious problems. What's her name? Anderson? What's her name? Yeah, I just got some information from a friend on her. Horrible. What this like? It's horrible. What's happening in Sweden? Unbelievable. And they're gonna win. It seems like such a nightmare. Klaus Sinzer, I listened to this clip from Leopold Aschenbrenner a few days ago. Both parents are medical doctors. He was privileged, German, but not in Germany. Klaus is not in Germany. Yeah, he sounds like Leopold. No, I'm not a fan. 28% capital gains in Portugal. Is it steal? Is it? That's horrible. Business aren't charities, but businesses that understand what is good, they can understand true long-term value. That is true. The SpaceX unlock sell-off will be dampened because the stock price is so low. Well, it depends where it is then. Let's see if it rallies. Delusions of grandeur. Yes, virtue signaling on steroids is effective altruism. Yeah, but it's like the worst kind of virtue signaling. I agree. If you have 10 million in SpaceX stock, you don't have to sell it, and you'd be dumb to sell it at 100. You can take 5 million loan just on the assets in your brokerage. Well, that's what you were saying because you're smart. But what if they're not smart? What if they're just first time ever dealing with that and they have some random wealth advisor and they're going to tell them that? These Democrats kill me just fighting all the time. If you're worried about Trump's family making money on crypto, then pass Clarity Act and get some crypto. Well, it's not that they can think straight. AUC plays dumb because she's manipulative bartender and hardworking for tips. Maybe. I mean, AOC is quite something. Seeing the retail corporate percentage change so much is really sad, but then people blame the rich for all their problems when they saw it at a terrible time. Well, some of them were forced, maybe. Thoughts about Elon telling people not to worry about retirement because universal will be here in 20 to 30 years? He says in 10 years. I think, like you guys know, I was an Elon fan from early on, but what he does now with this stuff is like, Elon, what are you doing? Like, Elon is a little loony out there. He's saying things that hurt people. Clearly, the idea that we don't need money is extremely stupid. It's like Elon is playing little teeny boy who thinks like, look, my robots are going to produce all these goods. But Elon should understand he's the number one authority on earth now. If he says something that is totally stupid, it's inexcusable because people will listen to him and then they'll think, oh, I don't need money. It's like, dude, if there is one time in human history where you really will need money, probably ideally Bitcoin, not fiat, it is in the next 20 years. If you don't have money, this will be not good for you. Like, this is such an absurd idea. I hate it. There will be an abundance. You don't need money. Like, bro, you don't need money to buy TVs. You don't need money to buy a bicycle. You need money to survive against the other humans. And there will be no abundance of power. I guarantee you that. There will be no abundance of power. There's never an abundance of power. It's always a zero-sum game. So you have to make sure you know the right people and you have resources, especially in the next 20 years and especially in the next 10 years. So I think that's horrible advice by Elon. Skyline. Some Iranian hardliners and IRGC figures believe widespread chaos, war, and the defeat of Israel US are needed to hasten the Mahdi's return. I don't know. They behave very rational, these Iranians. I don't buy into that they're all lunatics. I mean, they behave more rational than the US has behaved in this war. That's why they're kind of winning. if you're totally honest. So yeah, sure. There, of course, some people are nuts in Iran and they're radical religious nut jobs, but the same is true for the United States, and the same is definitely true for Israel. There are always some crazy people. I don't think they're the people in charge, because if they would be, they would not behave like this. Love your videos. Will Tesla see 1,000 robotaxis this year? I mean, I strongly believe the answer is yes. Trump is big in Japan. I'm big in Japan. You know the t-shirts. Cybercab can only really scale big when service centers are operating. That is true. Love Elon, but that's crazy talk, a bit irresponsible. Yes. Very irresponsible. What are the odds the world is absolutely shocked by the advancement of Optimus version 3? Elon says, well, I think the odds are high that the world will be shocked, but the odds are also very high that we won't see that thing until December. I don't think we will get some random surprise thing. I think that will be also pushed out. But yes, I think Optimus 3 will be very serious. So some people in power in Iran want the war to continue, and they do have influence, but nobody knows how much. True. So Andreas Peterson is in Sweden. Hey, hey. Jag älskar Sverige. FSD V14 Lite is very good. Got it a few weeks back and really like it. Good to know. Magdalena Andersson. She is typical Swedish woman. You're so mean to Swedish women. Well, Sweden has a Karen problem, I heard. A serious Karen problem. Swedish women can be very nice. I know some very nice Swedish women. But some of them can be very horrible. They need to be reined in, these Karens. And she seems to be a horrible, lying, cheating person. That's what I actually got some research on. I will do a video on it. I will do a big video on Magdalena Andersson and the Swedish Social Democrats. Pretty horrible. Zebras. Zero extrinsic value back ratio spread. Sell one at the money call a few months or so out and buy 270 delta calls for same expiry. Interesting. Minimum extrinsic theta decay, but function similar to 100 shares. I will look into this. I feel like anybody who got 10 million SpaceX stock was either an employee or a very smart investor. So I'm not sure there will be a bunch of uninformed holders trying to set it lock up. Well, but bullish, I told you, they need to sell. If that's all you have, even I would sell some. Well, Hotel Snob, of course, there's an event horizon. But yeah, you know, it's like, what's a good example? Some religious example. You know, it's like betting on something. Like, it's just, the problem is if he's right, it's fine. But if he's wrong, you're extremely screwed if you listen to him. That's the problem. Exactly. Stock me silly. We will always need money. Don't agree with that part of Elon's thinking. 100%. Yeah, absolutely, Andreas. Do you have my go on X and DM me? I would totally like to get in touch with someone, a Sweden Democrat. Riks News. I have to look into that. I think I saw this somewhere. I was looking for Swedish social media and alternative channels, but they're all a little lame. They have to improve their game. If I compared, of course, to the United States, look at Tucker and all this stuff. Like, this is crazy what's going on there, but also breaking points. They have so much, but it's US. But also Germany is completely blowing up. There's so many cool channels, like really cool channels. And Sweden, I haven't seen anything yet that is cool. So I think UK also has some, but Germany is pretty impressive. In Germany, there's high momentum. I'm getting very bullish on Germany. I'm like very contrarian because everyone thinks Germany is finished. And yeah, it is finished to some extent. But Jeff Jones Jr., what do you think of Finland and Finnish woman? Why is that? Are you Finnish, Jeff Jones? I love Finland. I think Finland is like one of the best countries, and Finnish women are very nice. That's what I think. But Finns can be a little depressed because it's like cold. But I love Finland. Judging by the hydraulic press channel, what is that? Finnish women are crazy in a good way. No, Finnish women are amazing. Are we talking about women now? How did this happen? I also don't agree that Swedish women are bad, but I understand what Andreas is saying about these social democrats. This is not good. Bad news. So Andreas, ping me, DM me on X. I'm very interested in getting in touch with someone. You know where I'm on X, right? Just DM me. I have to then accept your thing, but I will look out for it. Okie dokie. That's it. We should have like the weekly brief should have a 4th section on women. What about that? That gets us banned probably. Very good. So you know what's going on now? Go to pioneerlands.org. We have a lot of cool updates. I don't push it too hard yet because we are fixing the last little pieces, but it's a totally revamped site with the weekly briefings. And I think we are on a very good track. Pioneer Academy also making good progress, but will take another couple of weeks. So let's get ready. Tomorrow will be probably a green day. Hopefully. My microns are underwater right now after the stupid drop on Friday again. Awesome. Thank you. Tack så mycket, Andreas. Richie Cash. I haven't seen you before today. Oh, you don't have X. You have to get on X, Andreas. What's wrong with you? This is the problem with the Swedes. Like you're not on everything is happening on X, even a lot of Swedish stuff, by the way. You should totally be on X. That's better than any kind of outlet. It's not hard to get on X. You should do it. Jeff Jones here. I'm an American but lived in Helsinki for a couple of years. My ex is Finnish. So what do you think about it, Jeff Jones? No, I like Finnish women. I know a bunch. I'm never disappointed. Stock me silly, exactly. Who cares about the ladies? Let's get into the real business. Earnings call. Micron, exactly. Oh, Tex. I know Texas women too. Yeah, I totally understand that. Very funny. Okie dokie, guys, let's wrap it up here. We will continue. We're addicted to women by evolution. That's the only addiction we can't get rid of. That is our biggest problem. But not just problem, it's also the biggest solution. So I hope that was interesting and see you guys very soon. Tomorrow, SpaceX video coming up with very sophisticated predictions and very dangerous for me because I will be very specific about terrestrial build out of Colossus, which will be proven right or wrong probably the day after. So I'm leading myself out of the window, but we did very good research. So I will just get it out there and then we see what happens. I will blame my team if we are wrong. Just kidding. I read that Magdalena studied Marxism. They're the worst people. I will have a video on the Swedish Social Democrats because it's actually worth it. It's completely scandalous bullshit. And most Swedes don't even know about that. You guys probably know, but most Swedes don't. Finnish people and women are great. That is a good wrap up for today's video. I totally agree. So thank you so much, guys. See you very soon. Tomorrow is SpaceX Day, pre-earnings, and Colossus preview. Thank you.